Hello. Can everybody hear me all right? Yeah, okay, great. So today I'm going to tell something about integrating security audits when developing PHP applications. Let's see if this just worked. Ah, here it is. Okay. So first, a little introduction about myself. I've been doing security research since 90s and also developing PHP since 90s. And well, I've built for over 100 web applications, websites, and for over 300 security audits I've performed. The combination of both PHP with my security interest made me specialize in PHP security. And I work for a security company that specializes in penetration testing and security assessments of web applications. Let's see. Oh, let's go too fast. So in this presentation, I'm first going to give some examples of security incidents that had occurred recently. Then I'll talk a little bit about the causes of these incidents, what you can do to prevent them, and then I will talk about what security audits are, how you have to plan them, and to organize it. And well, after that, I will tell you how you can perform a security assessment yourself, and in the end, I will give a live demonstration of a security assessment on the black box web application. Twitter has been hacked recently. They've been defaced by some Iranians, and if this happens to your website, I would think that you would do utmost to prevent such a thing happening again. But a few times later, they got a cross-site scripting vulnerability, and a computer worm propagated itself via Twitter. So they didn't learn the lesson. Last month, a large Chinese website got hacked, and millions of customer details were fallen into hands of hackers. So that's not okay. Even Cisco and NASA got hacked, and just by a guy of 60-year-old. So it demonstrates it's not that high tech. It's not rocket science for a hacker to hack NASA. It really demonstrates the easiness of how you can penetrate applications. And also via SQL injection, there's a lot of credit card credentials being stolen. Well, even the website of MySQL has been fallen victim to SQL injection attacks. I thought it was pretty funny. They can't keep their queries clean. Also in 2009 and 2010 and 11, was a lot of hacking going on by hacker groups, Anonymous, LulzSec, Antisec, all kinds of hacktivists were hacking for political reasons or just for fun. And they've done a lot of damage. For instance, they've hacked Sony, the PlayStation network. And as for Twitter, a few months later they've got hacked again, so they didn't learn the lesson well enough. Well, yeah, and even online banking environments that contains very complicated web applications got hacked. Well, they have a large and complex environment, so it's easy to leave a vulnerability behind. Banks do perform security assessments, but well, not well enough, or they have been scoped it too tight and left some vulnerabilities behind. There's also a great amount of fraud going on, $500 million in 2009 with credit cards, and even some security experts can't protect themselves, like Symantec. Its source code has been released on the internet, and the website of Kaspersky also got hacked, and there's HB Gary has been pretty much owned. Their emails have been released on the internet. The backups have been deleted. Twitter has been hijacked, and yeah, that did some very much damage. After this incident, customers were leaving HB Gary, like Chamber of Commerce, a lot of others. So it really done some damage to the reputation. Also recently some SSL certificate authorities have been hacked, like Komodo, and but Komodo is still alive. But the Dutch DigiNota has a lot of damage. They've been hacked also. Fraudulent certificates have been created. A few months later, they've been bankruptcy, so it's no more. And DigiNota was been taken over last year for $10 million, and so it's a bad investment. It was. Also, a lot of cyber warfare is going on. A lot of governments are hacking each other, and it's really a war zone on the internet right now. And it's a dangerous place, so we should protect ourselves so we don't fall victim to attacks. If we look at the causes of these incidents, I think the most important thing is that developers care about functionality, and that's the primary job. It's their focus, but not security. And well, security is, well, it's a quality requirement, but ICT projects, it's very hard to deliver them on time within budget, and when you exceed the project planning, there's not much time left to do some security checks, to optimize security configuration. So and customers can't judge about how the security has been implemented, and management can't even see it also. So yeah, an application will be judged based on its functionality, not how safe it is. So you really have to do some testing to see if you are vulnerable or not. And security is something, it's very hard to do right. It's not that complicated, but you have to do it right. If you leave just one vulnerability in your application, yeah, you have the chance of getting hacked. And if you look at the business side of security, it's a lot cheaper to proactively invest in security than to repair damage when you've been hacked. And as these examples I've given, they can be easily prevented by just taking normal security measures. And yeah, it's not that hard. I will show you how. Yeah, but all these incidents could be prevented. So a lot of damage could be, yeah, shouldn't be damage. So the first thing you have to do if you're thinking about security is to perform a risk analysis. You have to think about your assets, what you're going to protect. Is it your source code? Is it your intellectual property? Is it business ideas? Is it medical or financial information? All kinds of assets there are. And you have to think about against who you're going to protect these assets. Is it burglars? Is it fraudsters, criminals? Is it your own employees or your customers? And after you know what you're going to protect against who, then you can think about appropriate security measures to implement. And after you know what to protect against who, then you have to calculate the chance that such an event would happen and what the impact would be if it happens. And then you know the risk value, and after you know the risk value, you can prioritize the risks. So yeah, you know what you have to serve first. After you know what risk you have to think about a security solution to implement, and if the investment for that security solution is yeah, worth the if it's worth the money. And yeah, well, in security investment should never precede the value it protects. And with this incident, it's bad design. It's yeah, probably 2 locks are cost more money than the bicycle itself. So yeah, and so if you're going to think security is important for your company or for your customers, then the first thing you have to do is to get management support, to create awareness within your organization that there are risks there are, and after you've got awareness and management support, you should appoint someone within your organization that you can account for, that's responsible for security, and that's really important. So if you have not one person, then well, nobody feels really responsible. And the first thing you have to do as an organization is to draft a security policy. You have to decide what an acceptable risk level is and what security measures you will be taking, and write a checklist with security tests you will be executing to see if the policy has been implemented correctly. And then you have to decide about which kind of audit you're going to do and when you're going to perform a security audit. I would recommend when you have a piece of functionality ready, then it's time to check if it's secure or not. So if you're building a login form for your application, if your login form is working correctly, you can do some testing on it. But at least test the application when deploying it in a test environment and in production environment to see if there are no vulnerabilities left. If you're making use of a web server maintained by a third party and it's owned by a third party, if you're going to do some security scanning on it, you really have to get a written waiver that you're allowed to do some testing on it. Otherwise you can get into problems. Yeah. So now we're going to execute some security audits, and we can do that on two levels. It's infrastructure and application. Infrastructure is just all the software on a server that opens ports. So like Apache, PHP, MySQL, FTP, SSH. That's infrastructure. The operating itself is also infrastructure. And application is just the customly wrote PHP code and SQL queries. There are a lot of tools that can assist you with performing assessments on infrastructure. For instance, this is Win32 Whois, and it automates some commonly performed tasks like getting ownership information of a domain name, of an IP address, it just queries some servers. It looks who owns an IP address, and yeah, it's quite handy. I used a lot. After I know what the owners are and if I have permission to perform an audit from the owner, then first thing I'm going to do is to perform a port scan on the host. Nmap is a great tool to use port scanning. It does also a little bit of vulnerability scanning. It has a lot of configuration options, and so be sure you know what you're doing and read the manual. If you're going to perform testing on production systems, you have to be very careful because you can deny of service the production server. It happened to me a few times, and sometimes it was just a wrong setting, or sometimes it was just not a good server. So yeah, take care of that. Also, a tool that all penetration testers use is Nessus. It's a de facto standard vulnerability scanning software. It has a database of around 40,000 checks. It even has web vulnerability scanning plugins. You can write your own plugin. I wrote my own web vulnerability scanner plugin within Nessus. It's a great framework. In this tab, you can find all plugins. Also, be sure what you're doing. It will generate a lot of traffic to the server, but it's really a great tool. All these tools I will name in the presentation are freely available. Some have a commercial version, but they at least have a freeware version. And the next tool I will going to show you is SSL audit. If you're making use of SSL connections, you really have to make sure that the configuration of SSL is being done correctly. What you see is that the default SSL configuration sometimes contains compatibility settings. So it will support SSL version 2 or 1, but they're not strong anymore. So what I recommend is always use SSL version 3 and TLS version 1 with encryption algorithms with a bit length of 128 or higher. But the SSL configuration will mostly be forgotten. And it's really a quick scan. Just with 1 or 2 minutes you have a report, and you know where you're vulnerable. There are a lot of other tools you can do infrastructure assessments with, but I will now proceed to application security. And if you look at application security, there are just two points that have done a lot of damage. It's not validating user input correctly and not encoding or escaping output. And when doing an assessments, there are a lot of vulnerabilities that can be done by injecting user input. So that will be a point of attention we're going to look further on. Also here some points that cause vulnerabilities. Just people should work together with other people. Well, it's not perfect, people make mistakes, so security vulnerabilities will be introduced. And always expect the unexpected when building an application. Yeah, you should really not trust anything outside your application. Obviously user input, but also database. You cannot be trusted, because if you share your database with a few other applications, if one of those applications get hacked, they can inject malicious code into the database, and then your application is also vulnerable. So yeah, pay attention to that. I thought there was a nice example of a barcode, and someone thought it would be funny to inject SQL code in it. Yeah, I can imagine that if you write barcode scanning software, you would think it would be too complex to create a barcode, custom barcode. But yeah, well, there are standards on barcoding, so yeah, it's not that hard. So always check input. I thought there was also a nice example of SQL injection code being injected into a license plate. I actually spoke to someone writing software that digitalized license plates, and he told me he didn't perform user input because a license plate is always a license plate. And I showed him this picture, and we make sure the next week he was implementing correct filtering. When you're performing assessments, you can do it on two levels, on a white box and black box level. White box is that you have full access to all kinds of documentation of source code, and it also means that the code you're doing analysis on is not running. With black box, the code is running, and you can have an interface to test on. And when I'm doing a code review, I always try to imagine what kind of person has wrote the code. If it's experienced or inexperienced person, if he's very strictly coding, or yeah, not that correctly. And yeah, it helps me think about which kind of security test I'm going to perform, and which kinds of yeah. When reviewing code, it's a lot of. I always review how specific functions are being used in the application, and these are some dangerous categories. If you're making use of file system commands, then you really have to make sure you check the user input. So what I do is I search in an application for all kinds of dangerous functions. These are a few, and it's a simple search. Just search in all PHP code for system function and see if you can manipulate it. Also, I search for dangerous fragments of code, for instance, when a super global has been printed directly, if it has not been validated, you have a great chance you have a cross-site scripting vulnerability, or if you have variables, then it could mean that someone is undoing a register global setting. Also, if you're redirecting use to another page, be sure you use an exit statement after the redirection. Otherwise, your script won't exit. And if you're doing authorization check, and if you're not authorized and redirect the user to the login page, but not exiting, you have an authorization bypass vulnerability. Pretty yeah, high priority. And also do not trust HTTP headers and PHP self. Pay attention to that. Also look for emotion in code. When I see statements like these, it's mostly a sign that something is not working correctly, or the code is not of high quality. Yeah. So always look for double question marks and all kinds of stuff. Also, I always review comments in PHP code, but also HTML and CSS code. So yeah, somebody is reading CSS code comments, just don't put internal stuff in it. Found it quite a few times. Yeah, and I also review when validation functions have been used and where they have not been used, and yeah, if there are some kind of security system, I always check where and how it functions. Also, if you're in a production environment, do never make copies of files and rename them because you want to test something if it works on the production environment. So don't rename it to .old or .backup or whatever. We will find it. There's tools for that scan automated for all kinds of extensions. And yeah, you have a possible source code leak if you're not having an extension with PHP. So now I'm going to give a short demonstration of some tools I use when performing a security assessment. Our starting point will be localhost. And I'll do a short port scan. It's another scanner that I used, but not named in the presentation. Nmap is very good, but it does not work very well on your own system. But Superscan does. So we're going to scan all TCP ports, and yeah, we're going to start it, and well, we'll let it scan. But I also know that port 80 is open. So this is the site we're going to attack. It's not very much, just some text. So it has no links, it has no content. So to some it will seem like a dead end, but there are all kinds of tools that can try to look for content. For example, it's Victo. Victo is a great tool. It makes use of Nicto. Nicto is a web vulnerability scanner. What it does, it looks for all kinds of vulnerable scripts and source and maps and yeah, all kinds of things that make you vulnerable. We're going to load the database first. I've limited to just 36 tests, just for the sake of speed. Configure the domain, the port. Let's roll. Another tool I use quite a lot is the Deerbuster tool from OWASP organization. What it does, it looks for all kinds of file names, directory names. It tries to brute force them. So we have to fill in the domain name. And we have to select a list. And it has quite some dictionary lists. Let's see if it will pop up. Yes. We're picking a small list. This list contains directory names and file names used that have been found on at least 3 servers. We're not going to recurse and use the same list in directories found. And we just lower the threads. Otherwise, you get a lot of traffic. So when we start, it will try all kinds of directories, and you will get the most results in the first time because it prioritizes on the mostly found directory names. It will scan it first. It also has a tree view interface, so that's nice. We'll let it do its work. What we're going to do is I want to view the HTTP headers of this request to see what it contains. Mostly it contains all kinds of juicy information. So we're going to set up a proxy. It runs on port 8080. Yes. So when I'm going to make a refresh, it will be intercepted by Burp Suite. Burp Suite is a great tool that all penetration testers are also always using for doing website vulnerability scans. It intercepts the packets Firefox generated, and you can even modify it and inject all kinds of values. We're just forwarding it, putting interception off. Let's see what the web server is returning. So here we see the original request or edited request. This is the response. We see here some version numbers, this indicates that the PHP option expose PHP is on. So never use this in production environments. Never ever display version numbers because it makes you vulnerable. Now I can look for specific vulnerabilities in Apache and PHP in this specific version. So this is our first finding, just delete it. And also a great thing about Burp Suite is it can do a spider. Well, there are no links that it can spider, but it can request some commonly named files like robots.txt. Here we see the progress of the spider functionality. It made 7 requests. And it found a robots.txt file with a disallow entry. And it follows it, and it got some, it found a directory. So let's see what kind of directory it is. So let's see, it's a damn vulnerable web application. I installed it, but if I see login screens, the first thing I'm going to do is to look on the internet for default usernames and passwords. And I know that it's the default username is admin, and default password is just password. But yeah, we failed our login. Dus what I do next is I'm going to brute force the login page, and we can also do that with Burp Suite. So we just have to select the packet. So this post where we just use these credentials, we're going to send it to intruder. It's a function so you can fuzz specific variables. We have to highlight which kinds of variables we're going to fuzz, and it will just be the password. Admin. Okay. So we've just selected password now. We're going to select the payload. Payload will be just a file name with some passwords. And yeah, we'll set to go. When you use tools like these, I always want to see what kind of traffic it generates to my server. So you can chain one or more proxies. So we're using now an upstream proxy to see what kind of traffic Burp Suite will generate. Because we can now only see the traffic Firefox generates. So I want to see Burp Suite. And I've got another proxy running on this port. And it's a proxy called Fiddler. Fiddler is also a great tool I use a lot. So yeah, let's fire up Burp Suite. Let's start our attack. And it will pop up. So it will try all kinds of passwords. Yeah, so for speed reasons I will pause it. And when a successful login has been made, often the length of the return will be changed. So if I just going to sort it, we see that the payload matrix generated more content than all the others. So next thing we're going to do is just use the payload matrix, and yes, as we see, it will work. Also, we see another version number here. That's not okay. But yeah, it's just an install you can do to just do some security testing on it. Yeah, for instance, you can do some file inclusion testing here. So if you see file names in URLs, you can try to include Windows ini file. Oh, it hasn't found. Oh yeah, we have to set up. We have to lower the security of this this application. It's a default security measure because it's for testing. If we try it again, we will see that we'll get the win.ini file. Well, you can all kinds of testing, but this is just one variable this application has. But this is just a manual test I just did, but these can be automated, and they can be automated with a tool called W3AF. It has a lot of plugins. For example, it checks for buffer overflows, blind and SQL injection, local file inclusion, OS commanding. But it will take some time to finish a test. Yeah, you just have to fill in the URL here, select which kinds of checks you're going to execute, and yeah, then hit start, and you'll get a report. Also, the commercial version of Burp Suite also has scanner functionality. So you can just select a file and send it to scan, or just a specific parameter. These automated scanners work quite well, but well, they're not finding everything. So you really have to manual test for stuff, yeah, also just to see what the other tools have found for directories. Let's see what Deerburst has found. Well, you see here a lot of false positives like these. So all these tools you have to review manually for the output. But this can be interesting. We found the PHP My Admin installation. Let's see if it's a false positive. Yeah, we see it is working. We're getting the title back. I'll just have to pause this scan. It's a little bit slowing down my machine. Okay. So we see it here. Then we test always for the default login, root with no password, where it will not work. Then I'm always always interested in a version number. And if you view the documentation, there's some version numbers being released, so I have to put a documentation. Yeah, well, it's not if you have a login, so always be sure you protect your PHP My Admin application with HTTP basic authentication. Sure, there's some other results. There are like icons, cgi.bin, all kinds of directory it finds, even a test file here, an index file. So yeah, you've got some starting points to figure out. Victor has also almost finished, or it has finished. It has found some vulnerabilities. It also found PHP My Admin config. Yeah, it found that the expose PHP option is on, so you get you just get the default images. It also found that the trace functionality is on. Trace is a debug functionality of web servers it just echoes your HTTP headers you sent. And if we look at our other proxy, Fiddler, we see all the requests we've made, and let's see if we can find the logins. Yeah, these are all the login we've done, all the passwords we've tried. Yeah, with Fiddler it has all kinds of options and all kinds of views you can use. It even has a cross-site scripting tester functionality. If you enable it, you can if you enable it, you can select some test cases. So if you're viewing, no, we do not want to update. So if we select specific characters, when you make a request, it will automatically check for these, if these characters will be encoded in the output. So when you browse, it will just try to find some cross-site scripting. It also has, well, it seems that I have to get this above. Yes. It also has a watcher functionality, and with all kinds of security checks, it will if it parses the output generated by the web server, it will check for all kinds of vulnerabilities in the output, and yeah. So these are just a few tools you can use to make an assessment of your application. What I mostly do is I'm just doing a combination of black box and white box testing, and that works great. If I have source code and I have a test environment where I can test on, I will just try to do all kinds of things an application won't expect, and I was always interested in how the application will react on it. And there are a lot of other tools available, but yeah, the time is too short to just demonstrate all kinds of tools. But I just want to give you an impression of specialized tools there are to just make an assessment of your application with. There are also tools that audit the PHP configuration. If you have some dangerous options being put on, like allow URL if open, it will automatically generate a report based on it, and it's a freely downloadable script from the PHP Security Consortium, and if you just Google on PHP SecInfo, you will find it. When I have the ability to just upload some PHP code, I always try to look at the configuration and see what how wrong it is configured. Perhaps you need some options, dus it's not that linear. There are all kinds of audit tools out there to look for dangerous configuration. These are just some tools I showed. Also, if you're making use of Joomla content management systems, there are specialized tools available that check for all kinds of Joomla-related vulnerabilities. I believe there are tools, specialized tools out there. This is one of them. It's a command line version, and yeah, it's if you're making use of Joomla, definitely check it out. Yeah. So when you've done your findings, when you've done your analysis, and actually, if you have a checklist and you've did all the tests on the checklist, you have to write a report about what you've tested, what you found in your application, what the risks are, and try to relate the vulnerability to business risks. So if you find an SQL reaction, try to relate it to what it can cause to the business. For example, a loss of reputation, or customer information being leaked on the internet. But just saying I found an SQL reaction, well, management can't do anything with it. So try to make to make a bridge to non-technical people, and draw a conclusion based on your findings if the application is secure or not secure, or what the improvements are. This is very important. If you're doing a test on your application, this is the thing people will see. They won't see you testing stuff, but if they see written down what you've tested and what you found, it's a clear communication to management and to your co-workers. Also, if you write down what you found, then it can be measured when it gets fixed or not. So after you've done your assessment, you have to look if you have some severe vulnerabilities found, if somebody has used the vulnerability, for example, if you have been hacked, so look into the log files if a vulnerability has been exploited, and also try to find the developer responsible for the vulnerability, so he can learn from it, and so that it won't happen again in the future. And after a patch has been released, it's a good habit to test again if the patch is working correctly and not introduces new security vulnerabilities. So if we sum up this story, it's very important to create awareness within your organization, within your team, and to get management support. So you will be backed up with management, and management gives you time and resources and money to make the security better of the software, and make someone responsible within the organization, make a team lead for security that will be assigned to do security checks, and someone that has the time to specialize itself in how to do security testing. Also make a security policy. So if you're making a technical design, be sure that there is a security chapter within it that talks about security by design principles, and write checklists. If you don't have checklists, your security assessment is not repeatable, and so that's really important. It's also to cover your track, to cover you if your website gets hacked and you have made the assessment. Well, if you look back and the website has been hacked, but you have not tested it because it was not in a checklist, well, you're covered. So yeah, if you made preparations, you should perform security audits when writing new code, when changing code, when releasing to a different production environment, test environments, and that's really the case. Security testing is not something magic. It's just if you have test cases, you have to perform them and be creative about things that the application would not expect. Inject those things and see how the application works. Yeah, it's really to do just your job and make the tests. Also, would like to give some recommendations for building secure software. It's one thing is most vulnerabilities will be introduced by junior programmers. So if security is really something you care about, please hire a good staff, and also be sure that you know what's going on within your application. Log a lot and make sensors within your application. So if you're parsing barcodes and your barcode is not being validated correctly, it is a sign that someone is being tampering with the barcode, and that's a hack alert. And when I do a lot of testing, mostly the application developers and maintainers don't notice that I'm testing it. Well, there are so much information out there that the application is being attacked, it won't be detected mostly. So, but if you detect it, you can prevent any further exploitation. So be sure to build in sensors and ban people that do hack attacks. Also, peer review your code, yeah, we are humans, we make mistakes. So if multiple eyes are looking at the same code, you will see errors. There's also a web application firewall you can use, for instance PHP IDS. We all know normal firewalls, but web applications also have firewalls that check all user input, all files being requested, and if your application has vulnerabilities within it, you can secure your application just within firewall. It won't, you won't patch the source of the problem, but you will get secured. So that's also a good thing to do. Also, there's a Hosting patch for PHP that fixes a lot of security vulnerabilities. So if you care about it, please check it out. And we've also got the OWASP organization. These folks do a lot of good things. They write books that you can buy for almost for free. They organize all kinds of things, conferences, meetings. It's really a great resource for all kinds of stuff about web application security. And the most thing I would like you to remember is security is not a product. It's a process. You're never finished with security. It's not something you buy and install, but security is something it's always there. You always have to care about, because at the moment you don't care about security, it is just a question. It will give some time and you will get hacked. It's a few months, few years, perhaps 5 years, but if you do not care about security, do not patch your systems, do security testing, well, finally you will get hacked. Thank you all for listening to this talk, and please leave some feedback on Join In. And if I can answer any questions, I'm more happy to do that. Yes?
So you've shown us a lot of tools, but as far as I could see, they were all Windows-based.
Yes.
And I more care about automating this process, and also we're running all the stuff on Linux servers. Is there anything that you would recommend that I can automatically run, for example, with every single release that I'm doing to check the software, to make sure developers did not introduce any security issues, so I don't have to do your job manually every single time? Yeah,
well, there's a lot of automated stuff there also for Linux. For instance, Burp Suite I use a lot. It's for Mac, it's for Linux, for Windows. W3AF is also Java based, so it's also Mac and Linux. Nmap, Nessus, you can run them on all platforms. So there's a lot of testing capabilities for Mac and Linux. And what I would recommend, there are a lot of good automated tools out there, like W3AF or Burp Suite or Aconetics, Web Vulnerability Scanner. And if you just make a good configuration, then you can run a test. Just fill in your website and just hit the button and see if you have cross-site scripting or SQL injection. So yeah, a lot can be automated, but you really have to take care about manual review. That's also important. Tools won't find anything. Won't find a lot.
That's still a bit manual because you have to hit the button.
Well,
so I know about accessing via APIs or things like that, so I can do a completely from start to end process when I'm just, okay, that's what I'm releasing, and it just happens in the background, and even if it's going to be after an hour, please give me the results, and I want to see what's wrong with it so I can actually report it back and get it fixed. That's what I'm more after.
Yeah, a lot of tools have command line options. So besides an interface, the interface generally produces command line options. So all these tools, they mostly have command line options, so you can automate it so you don't have to press a button. Okay.
Anyone else? Any further questions? Okay, great. Well, thanks very much for that. That was very